Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Wrestle Plug State of Wrestling Address. Every week we discuss the wrestling news. We try and do it every week. We did it last week, so let's see if we can go back to back. No fatal flaw this week. Tanver is unfortunately actually really under the weather, so we wish him well and hope that he gets back to his prime form of being on the FBI's top 10 most wanted list for debaucherous nature and also for his incognito mode. Meanwhile, I am the king of shithousery. It is Aeron Nix. Like I have a t-shirt now. Isn't that nice? Lovely. Isn't that nice? Available soon for just 20 pounds, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, I'm Aeron Nix. Joining me is, of course, the brand new, the reborn, the Scottish psychopath himself. Not that one, the other one, the much, much smaller one. Basically, the midget version of Drew McIntyre, ladies and gentlemen. It is, of course, Sean, my mother has mahoosive knockers, Mackenzie.
How's it going, ladies and gentlemen?
Yeah, not bad, not bad. Not bad at all. You know, for a woman who provides so much milk, you don't ask him to have a stunted growth.
Fucking hell.
And of course, ladies and gentlemen, joining us from Ferndown, the delicious, delinquent, debaucherous member of Dorset that is one half of the IWE Tag Team Champions, the current reigning and defending BCD champion. He is, of course, the history maker, the main event, the girth of Gertrude. He is, of course, ladies and gentlemen, the all-star assassin, Roger Ichiban #1. If my penis was any bigger, they would use it as the equator, Sears.
My God. Hello, everyone. It's going to reach a point where half the podcast is literally just my introduction soon, isn't it?
That's pretty much what we have to do on a slow news week, because boy, is it a slow news week. There's not much to talk about, so I wanted to really delve into the WWE King and Queen of the Ring, because we have updates, of course, because Raw this week saw some extra results going forward. And of course, last week we didn't know the full bracket for the women's. We now do. So, gentlemen, we're going to start by looking at the King of the Ring tournament. And of course, we now know, well, we know all the quarterfinals, but we also know one of the semi-finals. So in the quarterfinals, Gunther beat Kofi Kingston in 13 minutes 50 via submission to advance to the semi-finals. In the main event of Raw, Jey Uso defeated Ilya Dragunov in 13 minutes 15 to set up a semi-final against Gunther. Now, in the other quarterfinal brackets to determine a semi-final, which will happen on SmackDown, I believe, this week, Randy Orton faces Carmelo Hayes. Melo don't miss. And LA Knight will face Tama Tonga. So, first question, boys. Jey Uso going over Ilya Dragunov. A surprise, or are we happy with Jey Uso going on to face Gunther in the semi-finals?
I think it might have been a bit too soon to do Dragunov and Gunther. I think it's probably best to hold off on that one. Build him up a bit more on Raw before you then go, right, here's the clash that everybody wants to see between the two. So I don't necessarily agree with the fact of having him lose this soon, but I do kind of agree with the idea of keeping those two separated, because it was just going to be on a Raw, wasn't it? The semi-final. Am I right? It was just going to be on a Raw.
Yeah, you don't want to put it.
Yeah, you don't want to put it on a Raw, do you? And you kind of put those two against each other. You're sticking it on a PPL, right?
Yeah, because the King of the Ring finals and the Queen of the Ring finals, so obviously SmackDown versus Raw, the winners of each bracket will take place on the actual pay-per-view. I don't think the semi-finals will, which means that obviously, yeah, you were going to have Gunther versus Ilya Dragunov on Raw if that was the case, especially as a semi-final. You also have obviously Jey Uso, who is being pushed very strongly at the moment. Do you think that's the right decision? I personally like Jey Uso, but there has been a lot of people bringing into question, you know, obviously he was given an opportunity at WrestleMania to have match of the night against his brother, fell very flat. A lot of people are arguing that he wrestles far too much of a sports entertainment-based style that isn't conducive to having really, really good main event level matches, which is not the case. We've seen him wrestle Roman Reigns inside Hell in a Cell, for instance. That was excellent. So it's that case of like, I don't know, maybe he's leaning too much into being an entertainer and not enough into being a wrestler. There needs to be a good balance. You know, Cody Rhodes is a masterful example of that. So is AJ Styles. And yet Jey Uso doesn't feel like he's quite on the same level, although he is rampantly over with the fans, which ultimately is the measuring stick of whether somebody should be a star or not, really, in the modern era. So Sean McKenzie, Jey Uso or Ilya Dragunov, who should have advanced?
I definitely think Jey Uso was the right choice because they are at the minute trying to push him. I mean, Ilya Dragunov has just come from NXT, and his time on the main roster will come where he will gain that push of momentum, much like other people have, such as Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens. His time will be there. The minute it's Jey Uso's push to be this main event star. In regards of the sort of split between being a sports entertainer and a main event wrestler, I still think it's early days for his current singles run, even though it's nearly been about a year since the Usos split and since he split from the bloodline. I still think there's a lot that he needs to build up from, because also he's only just broken out of this bloodline situation. They've finally been drafted away. He's had the match with Jimmy. There's not really a lot going on there with Jay in the bloodline anymore. So there's plenty of time for that to sort of gain even more. But as Roger said, Ilya Dragunov versus Gunther for King of the Ring. Whilst it would have been a banger match because they've had banger matches before, that's got to be world title worthy or even intercontinental title worthy. I think if anything, Sami Zayn loses the Intercontinental title to Ilya Dragunov and they run it back for Gunther versus Ilya for the Intercontinental title again.
Roger C is Ilya Dragunov versus Gunther in Berlin.
Oh my God. That
Russia
would be something
versus Austria in Germany.
Yeah, it would be something, wouldn't it? We'll see, right? I definitely see these guys being two that can be big time headliners, and you could main event a WrestleMania with that match, couldn't you? Let's be honest.
You certainly could in a modern era, yeah. Not in the Vince McMahon era. He would never have had that.
God, no chance. But it's all a case of when they're ready to pull the trigger on it. I want to see them build Ilya Dragunov up to be something even bigger on Raw, because at the moment there is still this, not say a disconnect, but people still look at it as like, well, NXT's the feeder one, and until they've really done something on Raw or SmackDown, they're still not a big star, despite the fact of them having more than enough talent to be a bigger star. There's kind of this perception where NXT is still less than those two. So I think they're probably going to have to spend some time making him look like a big Raw star before they pull the trigger on those two.
Yeah. My only critique of Ilya Dragunov is he may not necessarily have the promo skills to match up with a lot of these more high-end guys. Dare I say he might be beneficial of a manager more so than somebody else. Someone like Paul Heyman would drag him to another level, potentially. But he's not to say he's not bad on the mic. He can talk. He just, I don't know. I don't think the gimmick really connects well with a modern audience, especially a very fickle younger audience who are used to kind of larger than life personas.
There's a lot that's been going around on like just like little speculations or like predictions of where Ilya Dragunov could end up possibly joining Imperium at some point as a heel turn. And I wouldn't be fully against that because they've worked against each other. Now they're working for each other. And again, if they're going to do another match of Gunther versus Ilya Dragunov, it's just going to build that even more. So,
yeah, I'm not against the idea of him joining Imperium. I think the only problem is that maybe he then gets cut off at a certain level because Gunther's always going to be the star of that. Like Ludwig Kaiser has so much potential, I think, to be more than what he is. He's just a lackey. They obviously binned off Vinci. He's now floating around NXT for the most part. Kind of just his new gimmick is basically that he's a sexy boy, which he is. He's very good looking. Obviously, he's shredded, but it's kind of like, really? Like, that's all you got for him? He's Italian. So, it's like, I am Vinci. Like, it's okay, cool. Like, it's not exactly. I don't want him to go down the route of Mansoor and Mansoir and that kind of thing. And I worry that that's what they're going to do. Although NXT certainly seems to be a proving ground now to try and repackage people. We've seen Baron Corbin come back onto the main roster and looks infinitely better for his time in NXT. Whereas Bron Breakker, ironically enough, seems to have gone slightly backwards. At least the booking would suggest that he's not really gotten off to a decent start really now that he's a permanent main event fixture, or at least a main roster fixture. On the SmackDown side of things, Carmelo Hayes versus Randy Orton is a real indication that they have a lot of trust in Carmelo Hayes. You don't stick him in the ring with Cody Rhodes and then Randy Orton this early. Do we see an upset here?
I think
quarterfinal. What was the other quarterfinal? Sorry.
So you got Randy Orton and Carmelo Hayes in one quarterfinal, and the other SmackDown quarterfinal is LA Knight and Tama Tonga.
Right. Okay.
I mean, we could see an upset and we could see Randy Orton go forward, but I very much wouldn't be
You
against
think
either
Randy
one.
Orton winning is the upset, do you?
No. Well, I don't know. I think either one could be upsetting depending on the fan, to be honest.
No, I mean when I say not, I don't mean like emotionally upsetting. I mean like, is it? And because ultimately, from a kayfabe standpoint, Carmelo Hayes beating Randy Orton is a huge upset. Unless you're Sean McKenzie, who doesn't know the difference between Tony Storm and Zoe Stark, so it kind of gets lost in translation. Apparently, all blonde women look the same. Sean McKenzie, he's just like.
Jesus. Yeah, I'm not too sure about that one.
Roger Sears, what do you think? Carmelo Hayes or Randy Orton?
No, I think Randy Orton wins it. Because I think I know where the whole tournament's going. Actually, I think I know what the final's going to be. Yeah, so I think Randy Orton wins this. It's not going to do Carmelo Hayes any damage, is it? To have lost to Cody and then lost to Randy Orton, really, is it? Let's be honest.
Not according to Sean McKenzie last week. He believes that Carmelo Hayes was buried by Cody Rhodes.
If he gets a decent enough showing that he can hang with them, then there's no burial there at all, is there? You know,
I think Carmelo Hayes is going over.
Really?
Yeah, I think Randy Orton's kind of in that role now where he doesn't really need to win anything anymore. You know, multiple times WWE champions, won everything, Grand Slam winner. You know, why does he care? Like, he doesn't give a shit. He's in his 40s, in amazing shape. But at this point, I feel like he has the opportunity to get other guys over. That being said, this does seem like it's primed and ready for a super RKO out of nowhere because Carmelo Hayes is one of these crazy, insane athletes. So, yeah, I'm assuming there's going to be something for the highlight reel in this matchup. I've got an idea of somebody interfering to cost Randy Orton. That's what I'm thinking, to set up maybe potentially a match. The WWE, pay-per-view, the PLE that will take place in Saudi Arabia, the King and Queen in the Ring tournament, because there are other matches other than, of course, King and Queen in the Ring, thank God, which we will discuss in a moment. But yeah, I fancy Carmelo Hayes. On the other side, Tama Tonga versus LA Knight should be cut and dry, but Tama Tonga's only just arrived. Do we like the idea of LA Knight going over Tama Tonga and Tama Tonga losing so early?
I've got a feeling that Tama Tonga is going to win that one because I've got a feeling that they're definitely building towards a even though I said earlier that Jey Uso has sort of moved away from this bloodline thing, I think they're going to sort of maybe drift towards it a tiny bit, and the final could see Jey Uso versus Tama Tonga, which I wouldn't be massively against. It gives Jey Uso another chance to wrestle a founding member and also hopefully put on a banger of a match. And from what we've seen from Tama Tonga so far, he's been nothing but impressive, nothing but dominant. Especially with Solo Sikoa and I've forgotten his name again.
Tangaloa.
Thank you. Especially with
Tongaloa, as they're calling him in WWE.
Tongaloa and Solo Sikoa by their side. He's been nothing but dominant. So I could definitely see Tama Tonga going over with this one.
So we've looked at this bracket. Who do we think is the final? Roger says, what's your prediction for the final?
Yeah, I not necessarily agree with it, but I think it's going to be Jey Uso and Tama Tonga is what I think the final is going to be.
So what do you think, Sean?
Yeah, I'm going with it.
I personally would much prefer it if it was LA Knight and Gunther in the final. I think Gunther winning King of the Ring is actually probably a better thing. I think he can work that into his gimmick a lot better than anybody else can right now.
Europeans make for very good Kings of the Ring.
Yeah. But just for some reason, I just get the impression that they're going Jey Uso, Tama Tonga. I don't agree with it, really.
I think it's LA Knight and Gunther. I do. I think, I just feel like that's the best route. And I think that Gunther has to win, really, unless there's going to be some sort of massive interference. Because otherwise, he's only had one high-profile loss in, 2.5 years? And that, of course, he's losing the title to Sami Zayn, the IC title at WrestleMania. So, him losing to Jey Uso is, I mean, an amazing statement for Jey Uso, which, you know, but it's also that thing of like, does Jey Uso need it? Like, and Jey Uso is the kind of guy who works better from underneath anyway. He is that baby face that people get behind because of all the turmoil that he's had to go through with the bloodline and stuff like that. So it's not going to hurt him as much losing the Gunter, which is why I think that they might just still go with something slightly more obvious. But I still have Gunter winning the King of the Ring. And I think he'll beat LA Knight in the final for it, which is bad news for LA Knight because he can't afford to lose at all anymore. On the women's side of things, it's a little bit more interesting, a little bit more open. So the quarterfinals are all set, and we have one semi-final set, same as we do in the men. So in the quarterfinals, Io Sky beat Shayna Baszler by pinfall, continuing the slow degradation of Shayna Baszler's career. She'll now face Lola Vice on NXT. That's the rivalry they're building for her. Congratulations. Lyra Valkyria beat Zoe Stark or Toni Storm, depending on who you are, in 9 minutes to advance to the semi-finals. So it'll be Io Sky and Lyra Valkyria from Ireland in one semi-final. And in the other quarterfinals that take place on SmackDown this week, Nia Jax versus Jade Cargill and Tiffany Stratton versus Bianca Belair. Very, very strong on SmackDown side of things, if you ask me. Who is advancing first out of Nia Jax and Jade Cargill? I think we're all assuming Jade Cargill's going over here, right?
Yeah.
This is again the highlight reel thing of like, look at her pick up Nia Jax and do something crazy with her. But on the other side of things, Tiffany Stratton versus Bianca Belair. Now, do they pull the trigger on Bianca Belair versus Jade Cargill, the women's tag team champions facing each other in the semi-finals, or do they advance Tiffany Stratton and feed her to Jade Cargill?
I personally think it's too early to pull the trigger between Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill. I know they had a little thing in the Rumble where they sort of stayed each other down, but now they're the tag team champions for the women's division. I think they need to wait a little bit longer, be a bit more of a sort of babyface dominant tag team for that women's division that it massively needs. And then at some point they lose it and then they have a match, and probably like SummerSlam maybe. I can see that being a very much SummerSlam banger more than a Queen of the Ring match.
Who's going through, Rog? Tiffany Stratton or Bianca Belair?
I think Tiffany Stratton. I think there might be some kind of shenanigans surrounding it. It's not going to be clean. I just don't think you can pull the trigger on Bianca Belair against Jade Cargill yet. Evident from the way they've booked all the matches with Jade is that they don't clearly have the confidence in her to go out there and have a singles match. And so that you want her at a much higher level than what obviously they think she is before you are going to put her and Bianca Belair against each other. And you're not going to chuck that away on a SmackDown, are you? You're just not. That is definitely going to be a big time show when they put that one on. So, yeah, for me, Tiffany Stratton goes over. And, yeah, Jade's going over Nia Jax, isn't she?
Yeah. Who's winning this? I have Jade Cargill winning. I think it's pretty obvious. I just don't see anybody else winning it.
Yeah, I've got Jade Cargill as well.
Who have you got?
I feel Tiffany Stratton might win this.
Oh, I'd love to see Tiffany Stratton win. She's my favorite at the moment out of all the women's wrestlers. She just exudes star power. Yeah, everything about her just says megastar.
Yeah, I think shenanigans sees her get by Bianca Belair, and then shenanigans sees her get past Jade Cargill. I think that she's the one winning it for me.
I can see them doing something really shitty like Jade Cargill beats Nia Jax, and then Nia Jax snaps and beats her up after the match, and that means that she can't advance.
Yeah, that would be about
so.
Right.
Tiffany Stratton gets a bye into the final, and then faces whoever wins the Raw Women's match. But they have advertised both for the finals being there, so I guess that would be a massive cop out. Mind you, it is Saudi Arabia, so I doubt they're going to really receive a Queen of the Ring nearly as well as they would a King of the Ring, because women are not allowed outside at the best of times.
Exactly.
It's awkward. And anyone saying that's offensive, I'm an Arab too, so you can suck my dick. Is that I come from a country where we allow women to walk the streets and drive and do things like that, because we're slightly more progressive. But what do I know? We only invented the fucking world. Suck my dick. Haven't really been that controversial up until now, I guess. So we think that. So myself and Sean McKenzie have Jake Cargill going over, and you have Tiffany Strand going over. And on the men's bracket, you both have Jey Uso, and I have Gunter. So a little bit of separation, which is interesting. We'll see how that pans out, and obviously we'll get back to you next week, ladies and gentlemen, as we resume the State of Wrestling address. Now, on the actual show proper, the PLE, there are 3 matches that have now been announced for the Saudi pay-per-view, which is, of course, coming up very, very soon. It actually takes place May 25th, so not this weekend, but next weekend. So obviously next week we will be previewing the King and Queen of the Ring PLE. Right now, of course, we know who Cody Rhodes' next contender will be. Prepare yourself, ladies and gentlemen, because the King of Prime is going to face Cody Rhodes. He's only had 1 title defense, and already I have to root against him. That's so unfair for the poor guy. But Cody Rhodes faces Logan Paul, the United States champion, for the WWE Undisputed Championship at Queen and King of the Ring. Obviously, Logan Paul's not going over, is he?
No.
This is just like, oh, it's Saudi Arabia. Here's a big star. And to be fair, Logan Paul had a fantastic match with Roman Reigns when he last had a big title match in Saudi Arabia. So, and I tell you what, this will just improve his stock further as one of the better heels and best athletes the company has. I still think he should be world champion. I think he should have won it, not Damian Priest. I think he would have been perfect as Mr. Money in the Bank. I think what they've done as well is they're so smart with this. Have you noticed how he actually feels like a star? Like he's on TV enough, but he's not wrestling every week like a lot of these guys are. He has big matches, and he feels like a big main event attraction. They've used him very well, and the use of Prime as well, like that is skyrocketing as a brand. It will get to the point where it is one of the biggest. I mean, it already is for a lot of people the biggest brand in the world. So good choice in terms of an opponent for Cody Rhodes.
Yeah, I feel this. After you.
Thank you. I think it's a good choice because it's going to be an absolute bang over either main event or wherever they're going to put it in the card for the Saudi Arabia show. I very much am not sure, however, on if it's a champion. Like, I know obviously it's champion versus champion, but are they both belts on the line, or is it just the undisputed WWE championship on the line? Are they going to do
It's being advertised as just for the WWE Undisputed Championship. Well, actually, it's being announced as champion versus champion match. I don't know whether that means that both belts will actually be on the line or not. I'll have a look, but yeah, I mean, champion versus champion doesn't necessarily mean either belt will be on the line, because if it's not for a belt, I could see Logan Paul causing an upset.
Oh, absolutely. And then that could skyrocket Logan Paul even more, especially if he brings out the brass knuckles, and then he can just parade around the place that he pinned the undisputed champion, which I could very much see happening. But if it is for both belts, I think that's unfair on Logan Paul because he has only just started his United States Championship run. And if it does mean that he then loses the United States Championship to Cody Rhodes and Cody becomes...
I mean, he's had it for a few months now. Successfully defended it at the Rumble, and then successfully defended it at Mania, and then so he's had it a little while now. I don't think it makes sense to put the United States title on Cody Rhodes, so I don't see why they would bother having both belts on the line. I think it's just this is more a spectacle. Roger says, do you think it might be a better use of traction if maybe this is a fuck finish? Logan Paul knocks him out and gets disqualified, and then that leads to them having a main event WWE title match to kind of drag it out a little bit until you can get maybe The Rock or someone else who's more main event worthy to build to a really high profile rivalry at SummerSlam. Because apparently, well, the rumors are Rock versus Cody at next year's WrestleMania, which means you need something to fill the gap at SummerSlam.
Yeah. As long as it doesn't headline the show, because you never want to finish your headliner on a finish like that, do you?
I think the King of the Ring is going to main event. I think the men's King of the Ring will, I think that will definitely main event. Yeah.
So I don't see any issue with a finish like that. I very much feel this is looking like a way for them to measure how Logan Paul can hold up in this situation. I know he has already been there with Roman, but for some reason, I get the impression this is them testing the waters of just how far has he come to be considered, working at the very top of the card. And that's how this feels more to me, is they want to see where, how close he is to being ready to be the guy for them. So I'm looking forward to this one. Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to this. If like Steve said, if this is for the WWE Championship, Cody's winning it. But if it's not for either title, yeah, I could see Logan Paul getting an upset here. Definitely.
The IC title was also on the line. Sami Zayn defends it in a triple threat match. Not only would he face Chad Gable, who's already had an absolute barnstormer with, that's obviously building that rivalry with Chad Gable semi-turning on him. Although they don't really know how to present Chad Gable as well as they maybe should do. They're so reluctant to pull the trigger on the next Kurt Angle, aren't they? Which is very frustrating. I feel like this is your chance, just push it. Bronson Reed is also in this triple threat match, which is very exciting for me. Somebody who I worked with on the Indies. Somebody I love Jonah Rock anyways, great guy, somebody I've had interactions with, and it's lovely to see him being pushed properly. He beat Bron Breakker obviously on Raw recently, which was quite a big deal. I think a lot of people were surprised by that. They thought Bron Breakker was going to get the push at his expense. Sami Zayn coming away from Saudi Arabia, still Intercontinental Champion, despite only holding the belt for a couple of months.
The thing with when they put title matches on shows like this is I never really feel that confident that they're going to do a change, because they just feel like. Do you remember when they used to do the UK only pay-per-views?
Oh, right, yeah. And the only title that would change
everything.
hands is the hardcore title.
Yeah, and it was just like, they're never going to do anything all that meaningful, are they? And this is another one of those where it feels like they're not really doing anything all that meaningful. I know they're crowning the king and the queen of the ring, and that feels like it's more for the setting than anything else. But it never feels like they're going to pull a big change. And for me, it almost feels the same here with the IC title. Like, they're not going to pull a big change. Personally, I think Chad Gable should take it, but I think they're not going to bother going that route, and that Sammy's going to retain. That's what I feel.
Sean McKenzie, Sami Zayn to retain.
I think, yeah, Sami Zayn retaining. I mean, as Roger said, they don't really do a lot when it comes to title changes on these Saudi Arabia shows. I remember the very first one that I watched, they didn't change a title didn't change a single hand. Every single person that walked in as champion walked out as champion. I feel like that's sort of, I can't really recall any times on a Saudi Arabia pay-per-view or PLE where a title has actually changed hands. There's probably one or two there, but none that I can think of. And I think this is also a very good way to build between having Sami Zayn versus Chad Gable in a singles match. Again, we're talking about SummerSlam a lot, so I'll bring it up here again. Definitely a SummerSlam worthy match between those two, with Chad Gable going over at that point. I definitely feel like that's possibly what they are building towards. But yes, I do feel like Sami Zayn is going to just walk out, probably a double haluva kick to each corner, pinning either Bronson Reed or Chad Gable to walk out.
And then we, of course, wrap out what matches are currently announced with the women's title match, which is obviously one that I'm going to be vehemently on one side for. The Women's World Championship will be defended when Becky Lynch defends it against Liv Morgan. And this is it's so obvious who's going to win, but like, I have no interest in Becky Lynch retaining, even if it wasn't a case of I was madly in love with Liv Morgan. I just detest Becky Lynch at this point. Becky Lynch finally defends the belt against Liv Morgan. Cut and dry, Becky Lynch to retain.
I'm going to go completely against everything I've just said and go on caution of hope and say, nope, there's a new champion here. Liv's winning.
What, so that she can build her rivalry with Rhea Ripley, bringing it back?
That 100% needs to happen. In all seriousness, again, I don't think they're changing the title here.
Should Dominic Mysterio cheat on Rhea Ripley in kayfabe with Liv Morgan? As a kayfabe wrestler, Roger Sears, would you cheat on Marmy with Liv Morgan?
Yeah.
What? What?
Yes! These men understand. Or this man understand. Apparently, Sean McKenzie is all in on Rhea Ripley.
I'm sort of like on the fence with it. I really don't know. I mean,
you're a kayfabe wrestler, Sean McKenzie. You're not Steve-O right now. You're Sean McKenzie. You're on the Raw roster. You have the opportunity to stay in the Judgment Day with Rhea Ripley, or you have the chance to cheat on X-Pac and China style with Liv Morgan.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. Liv Morgan. It's Liv Morgan.
It's everybody needs to see. Well, everybody knows Liv Morgan, hottest woman on earth. End of story. It's not even, although Rhea Ripley is quite delectable in her own right, but man, yeah, yeah.
When it comes to this match, again, same thing. Title's not going to change hands. It's going to stay on Becky Lynch. Talking about screwy finishes earlier with the Logan Paul and Cody Rhodes, I've got a strong feeling that even though she's out injured at the minute, Rhea Ripley is going to show up and cost one of them the match, probably Liv Morgan from winning, because Liv Morgan is the reason that Rhea Ripley is out injured at the moment. So they could pull some kind of screwy finish there with that.
So if Liv Morgan doesn't beat Becky Lynch for the title, which is kind of, I think a lot of people just assume Becky Lynch is cut and dry going to win this, who does Becky Lynch face next?
I think they go to a rematch because I think Liv takes it from her eventually. It's just not happening here. Because I think Liv needs to win that title and then have a bit of a dominant reign with it, battering any contenders out of the way until Rhea's back.
I think the Raw Women's Division,
ultimately,
if you take Liv Morgan away from it, and you look at the contenders, I mean, for instance, in the Queen of Ring, you know, Maxine Dupree, Shayna Baszler, Io Sky is, you know, but she's just dropped a belt, obviously.
yeah.
Natalia, Dakota Kai, you know, like good, but I wouldn't say necessarily main event worthy. Lyra Valkyria, certainly, I mean, you know, the Irish connection might sell it. I mean, especially if they had an Irish pay-per-view coming up, I'd absolutely be like, well, put Lyra Valkyria and Becky Lynch together. Beautiful. Yeah, like if you look at it, SmackDown much stronger in terms of star power with Jade Cargill and Bianca Belair and Tiffany Stratton and Naomi. Like, holy shit! Like they've got all the number one contenders you can have, like, and obviously Bayley is their champion. So yeah, the SmackDown Women's Division certainly a lot thicker on the ground. So yeah, like who's facing Becky Lynch if not Liv Morgan again?
Yeah,
maybe Lyra Valkyria on a Raw, like just to kind of say, you know, here's your moment. A couple of Irish lasses that have come good, you know. Hard not to root for Lyra in that position. Obviously, somebody. The thing with Becky Lynch as well is that I don't even have the emotional connection of, oh, she's part of the NXT UK brand. She never really was. Whereas Lyra Valkyria was, you know, Valkyrie was somebody I saw at OTT, for instance, in Ireland. She's come over here to England a number of times and wrestled. So it's easier to, even Rhea Ripley was the NXT UK Women's Champion. So we had a little opportunity with her as well to kind of really, you know, she came over here. She was at some of the TV tapings I went to. So, you know, it's hard to have any emotional investment in Becky Lynch's champion. And again, she's really turning into me like female John Cena in sort of like 2012, 2013, where it's just like the same repetitive bullshit. Here she comes, she wins the belt again. You know, we hear the same boring, mediocre promos that don't really put anyone over. They just bury themselves. As a complete side note, did anyone see Becky Lynch sporting her new attire at the Kentucky Derby with a clean-shaven or mostly clean-shaven Seth Rollins?
Oh, yeah.
That shocked me. I never wanted to see a clean-shaven Seth Rollins ever.
What's more disturbing, Aeron Nix being shaved or Seth Rollins being shaved?
I mean, I've seen a picture of you with no beard, and You've
been stalking my old profile, haven't you? You've been on my old Facebook. Oh, what he's up to. They're great now. Loads of people are going to be looking for the old Aeron Nix profile.
But like, I don't know. I've always seen Seth Rollins with the beard, and then seeing him without it is just a bit like, holy shit, what the fuck is going on here? Like, Becky Lynch's whatever she was wearing on that event, I thought, how the fuck can you see? You've got a massive metal visor.
Jim Cornette said she looked like a half-open can of potato chips. Which, by the way, is very much how I see her wrestling career at this point. Like, yeah, I'll still dip in every now and then and have a few cheers, but ultimately it's pretty stale and I have no interest in that. I'd rather go down to the supermarket and buy something new.
That looks like that half-open can of Pringles that you kind of eat half of it, you forget about it for a good few months, and you find it again. And you're like, oh, I wonder if they still taste good. And they're all right,
Once you pop, you can't stop. I'm waiting for the Pringles t-shirt at Phoenix Pro Wrestling now. Yeah, nobody give Lunatrix any ideas, for the love of Christ.
I think you've just given her one.
That's Roger's department, not mine. But you know, it is what it is. I mean, he's given everyone one with the size of his. Speaking of which, it should be worth pointing out. Now, I mean, obviously, last week you might have recognised that we were having a bit of fun with some truthful observations about one of our members' appendages. Now, Roger Sears is obviously very famous in the wrestling world for having a humongous cock. But yeah, I'd like to ask you boys a question. What is the difference between Roger Sears' cock and a bonus check?
Oh, God.
Well, ultimately, it takes very little time to blow through your bonus check. More to come, ladies and gentlemen, in the coming hour. Boing. Yeah, good shit. So that's WWE King and Queen of the Ring. Now, in keeping with that, I thought we'd test out. So I would have liked to have asked Sean McKenzie, but his knowledge of WWE can be written on the back of a postage stamp. So therefore, in terms of history and knowledge, I'm going to ask Roger Sears to really impress here. So Roger Sears, I have a list of every King of the Ring winner since its inception in 1985, and we are going to see whether Roger Sears can tell us every single King of the Ring winner. Now, we will start with 1985. Who was the first ever WWF King of the Ring, Roger Sears?
I don't even think I'm going to get this right. Who was the first? No, I can't see how I'm getting this right. First ever.
John McKenzie, stop Googling, you little shit.
Oh, fuck.
I know what you're up to there. John McKenzie, do you know any King of the Ring winners?
I know a couple.
Right. Okay. It's either Harley Race or Junkyard Dog.
Nah, see, Harley Race was 1986. 1985 was Don Morocco. He was the first ever King of the Ring. So, 1987, who was the King of the Ring?
The Junkyard Dog?
Nope. Junkyard Dog has never won King of the Ring.
Did he not be crowned king? Or he's just in a feud with Harley Race. Sorry, Haku.
No, Randy Savage won it in 1987. Haku was King of the Ring, but he actually technically won it from a King of the Ring. So he wasn't technically ever officially King of the Ring, at least by WWF's estimation. So Randy Savage won it in 1987. 1988, who won King of the Ring?
This isn't going very well, is it, so far?
Just gave you a big clue. Big clue.
Yeah, the $1 Million Man.
There you go, Ted DiBiase. All right, 1989, Jobber Extraordinaire. Who won King of the Ring?
Jobber Extraordinaire. Jesus Christ.
Do you want a clue? Do you want a big hint?
I mean, I'm going to need it for these earlier ones.
Arriba!
Tito Santana.
Tito Santana won the 1989 King of the Ring. Now, who won and he's, I believe, the only man to ever win back-to-back King of the Rings, 91 and 93. If you don't get this, I will kill you.
That's Bret Hart.
It is indeed. Who won it in 1994?
Owen Hart.
Very good. 1995.
Mabel.
This is where we start getting. This is where we start cooking. 96 is probably the most famous one for the promo.
Stone Cold Steve Austin.
1997.
Triple H.
1998.
The Rock. No. Ken Shamrock.
Yeah, there's Rock in there, but it's Ken Shamrock.
Ken Shamrock.
1999, arguably and universally disguised as the worst King of the Ring of all time.
Billy Gunn.
Billy Gunn. And in 2000, who won King of the Ring?
Edge.
No, it was Kurt Angle.
Oh, I see.
Edge won it in 2001. Yeah, you got him the wrong way around.
If Kurt Angle was going for back-to-back, wasn't he?
He was. He rather famousely wrestled I think it was 4 times in one night, wasn't it? Didn't he? Oh, no, 3 times. He had the semi-final one. He also had the street fight with Shane McMahon, that brutal affair where he almost killed Shane McMahon, which is, in retrospect, might have been a good idea. And the final winner of the original format of King of the Ring was in 2002.
Brock Lesnar.
It was indeed Brock Lesnar. Bonus point for who he beat in the final.
Rob Van Dam.
Very good. By the way, I always say this when referencing 2002 King of the Ring. Anyone who wants an explanation or really a fine example of how to do a perfect powerhouse heavyweight match, check out the semi-final between Test and Brock Lesnar in 2002. Just two units on roids trying to murder each other. Truly something to behold. Yes, indeed, ladies and gentlemen. All right, moving on to what I like to call the rubbish King of the Rings. At least, well, one of them actually ended up being pretty good. 2006 saw the next crowning of a King of the Ring, Roger Sears. Sean McKenzie, you're also in here, although I know for a fact that you've already got it up on the screen, so technically you can
I haven't.
Really? All right. All right, we'll allow Sean McKenzie to enter the fray as he was born after 2002. So, or at least he certainly acts like he was. He's actually not that far off.
I'm definitely gonna get this one wrong.
All right, have a guess.
Booker T.
It is Booker T in 2006. He's definitely got the screen up, hasn't he, the cheating little bastard. 2008, who won King of the Ring?
Was that William Regal?
It was indeed William Regal, which for me was the last good King of the Ring. He was excellent, and then unfortunately he got suspended for, believe it or not, steroids.
Yeah.
2010 saw the crowning of a unique King of the Ring. Who was that?
Sheamus?
It was Sheamus. So very good. Nice work on the old Google machine there, Mr. McKenzie. And then we had a 5-year wait for our next one in 2015. Who was that?
Wade Barrett.
Wade Barrett,
indeed. Yeah, he's definitely on the Google because there's
I'm
no
looking
way
this way. My screen's that way. I'm looking.
Yeah, but the fact it's already but that suggests that it's up there. So you've already read it, you cheating little fuck. I should disqualify.
I didn't read it at all.
He's a cheating little shithouse. Who won it in 2019? You've only got two left.
Jesus Christ. This should be a lot easier, shouldn't it? Because it's more recent.
Yeah.
I didn't even fucking realise they did one in 2019.
They did. It was fucking terrible. And the winner ended up being... I'll give you a clue. The winner has just come back to the main roster.
Oh, was it Baron
Corbin?
It was. And your final King of the Ring, which of course took place, believe it or not, in 2021.
Xavier Woods.
Yeah, which was a massive bust. Except for the scene where obviously Roman Reigns and the Bloodline beat the shit out of him and took the crown, which was relatively funny from my perspective. So that rounds up the WWE quick fire quiz for the week. We'll try and get some more stuff in for you next week, ladies and gentlemen. Speaking of Roger Sears knowing something about size, what does Roger Sears' penis and a Rubik's Cube have in common?
Oh my God.
The more you play with them, the more difficult they are to insert. Also, Roger Sears' cock expands across so many borders that actually, due to its ability to tan in certain places, it does actually have a resemblance to a Rubik's Cube due to the different colours. That's completely off the cuff. You're welcome there, ladies and gentlemen. Boing. Yes, indeed, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, indeed. We'll come back to that in a moment, ladies and gentlemen. Right, a little bit of news. So, AJ Styles said that he would have one dream opponent left, but on one condition. Did anyone see who his dream opponent was?
No, I didn't see this.
I think so. I saw something about him wanting to face The Rock.
Yes, indeed. He wants to face The Rock. On one caveat, he must be the heel and Rock must turn face. Do we think there is extreme value in heel AJ Styles versus face Rock?
It could definitely pull off a banging match, that's for sure. But I think it would need to be maybe a couple of years down the line. And that's mainly because when The Rock left, well, he's not left the WWE, but where he last came off, he was still the final boss persona. He's still heel Rock as we now see it. So there's still possibly this whole bloodline thing going on. He could be the secret tribal chief that's going on behind the scenes. So I think it's definitely not 2024, not 2025, easily 2026. I could see it happening if the money is there.
Roger says you're a very big fan of AJ Styles. Do you want to see him face The Rock?
Yes, I would like to see that. AJ's openly admitted himself that he ain't got much time left, hasn't he? So if it doesn't happen relatively soon, it's just not going to happen at all, is it? And I think a few years, you might be stretching it a little bit as to whether AJ's still going to want to be going by then. I definitely agree, AJ being the heel, because when you look at the dynamics of it, who would be better as the baby face in that storyline? And it would 100% be The Rock, would be the better baby face. So I'd agree on that respect. It's just a case of whether they're going to get it done, because obviously we're still expecting Rock versus Cody, and I still believe there's Rock versus Roman to come at some point. So where do you fit in Rock versus AJ?
That's the problem, is Rock's going to be a heel for a while. So yeah, and especially if Cody's going to get the big win back over him at WrestleMania, maybe you turn your face, or after that, AJ Styles comes out and goes, "You used to be the final boss. You used to be the most dominant man. Now you're a fucking piece of shit, and I'm going to twat you at Backlash," and then run it back in France again. Maybe have Backlash in France again, so that AJ Styles is ludicrously over against The Rock. That'd be quite funny. The crowd would be. Speaking of things that could be referred to as a rock, Roger Sears, I'm aware that your penis is extremely huge. I do have it on good authority that Roger Sears' cock is so big that it got 377 electoral votes in Texas last year. Incredibly impressive. Yes. Yeah, Roger Sears' cock, so big, so popular, in fact, that it actually got more hits, quite literally, than Gangnam Style did in South Korea. Very, very impressive indeed. And also, just finally, when you go into Starbucks, you can have tall, you can have grande, or you can have Roger Sears' cock. Don't forget to add the foam on the end, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, indeed. Boing. All right, so AJ Styles facing The Rock. That's a dream matchup. So Jesse Ventura, something for you really here, Roger. Jesse Ventura finally, after so long being excommunicated and essentially blacklisted from WWF, is in talks with WWE about a Legends contract. Do we think there's any value in bringing back the ultimate conspiracy theorist?
Maybe not so much now. I don't mean that to be so harsh to him, but where he's so much older, he's been the governor of Minnesota, wasn't it?
Very, very old now, Jesse Ventura.
That was a long time ago that he was the governor there, and it sounds so horrible to say this, but he's not really relevant enough for there to be all that much in it. It's a nostalgia thing. There'll be those who were fans back from our era will remember him on commentary and on TV, and that'll be great, nostalgia thing. But I don't see how it really is going to connect to a more modern audience. It's been so long now.
He's also he's more known now as the kind of tin pot, tinfoil hat wearing lunatic, isn't he? He believed that 9/11 was an inside job. Inside Job, the animated series on Netflix, even took a piss take out of him. There's like a scene where they're all at group therapy for people who work in the deep state, and Jesse Ventura, like they're all going around the room, and there's Mothman, Slender Man, there's fucking what's his name, the big hairy guy, I've forgotten his name, that everyone thinks is Chewbacca. I've forgotten his name now. The giant gorilla, whatever it is, the myth that there's that giant like beast. Bigfoot. Yeah, so Bigfoot's there, and he's sitting there going, "Oh, a child called me Chewbacca the other day," and he's like having a meltdown over it. And then there's Jesse. He goes, "I'm Governor Jesse Ventura, and I need to know things about things that I don't know about." And that's the thing. It's like, wow, you're more famous for that, and also an interview with Piers Morgan where he tried to present facts and arguments that the towers were detonated by the US government. So not that obviously you catch me talking about 9/11 in any kind of format as an Arab man. I think that's grossly immature, and everyone should grow up. Speaking of growing, Roger Sears' penis is so large it actually has its own zip code. Astonishing work, has to be said, really, at this point. His penis is so large, in fact, it actually has a capital. A lot of geography-based ones for you this
Jesus
week, ladies and
Christ.
gentlemen. A lot of geography-based ones. Trust me. Yeah. Yeah. There are two men standing on a pier taking a piss into the sea. One of them was Roger Sears. One of the men said, "Man, that water looks cold." And Roger Sears said, "Yeah, I can feel an eel on mine." Everything you need to know. Speaking of which, watch out Isle of Wight, because Roger Sears is in town, and that means tsunami happy. Jesus Christ. Someone's dying on the Isle of Wight this Saturday. Like, we're gonna have to hang you off the edge, aren't we, as we get the ferry over? Like drop anchor. Roger Sears already did, I'm afraid. Is what it is. Anyway, moving on. Swiftly. Should be worth mentioning actually that this Saturday is Phoenix Pro Wrestling Maximum Break at 11 Esplanade and Ride. And of course, all three of us will be in attendance for that. Roger Sears and myself will be doing all the media coverage for that. And our good buddy here, Sean McKenzie, will be providing refereeing duties for a stonking 5-match card that involves hardcore girl-on-girl action. Roger Sears, how do you feel about your girl, Lunatrix, facing Shorty in a hardcore girl-on-girl match? Are you going to be the surprise guest on comms for this?
We quickly just skate on to the next subject.
All right. Fair enough. Roger Sears is very uncomfortable at this
Keeping
point.
that one on the taps.
Yeah, obviously, a certain portion of his incredible appendage is currently being massaged by an individual from the Isle of Wight, ladies and gentlemen. We also have, of course, the triple threat match: Hunky Dory, Jack Lumber, and Samuel Jacobs. That's going to fucking slap. We have Joshua James versus Johnny Viribus. We have the, of course, incredible one-on-one matchup will be Jack Torino versus Mr. Wrestling Will Roberts, and our main event will be a pool hall brawl involving Rudy Root and the Beards, Mad Dog and Kyle Atlas versus Nero and the Annihilation in what is going to be apparently a fucking ludicrous Falls Count Anywhere-esque street fight across the entire Rocket Ronnie. So, yeah, odds of 1-2 on either me or Roger Sears getting a clattering at some point. That should be very interesting. If you're very lucky, Roger Sears is currently actually being spoken to by his wife about his behaviour on the Isle of Wight. Yes. She's saying, if I hear Lunatrix mentioned one more time, I'm getting a divorce. But yeah, if anyone would like tickets, they are still available. You can head over to phoenixpro.uk and buy yourself a ticket. It's £10. It is 18 plus, however, ladies and gentlemen. So a disclaimer, obviously, no people under the age of 18 are allowed in the venue. It is, of course, at 11 Esplanade Ride. It's on the Isle of Wight. You can get an incredibly cheap ferry there and back from Portsmouth Harbour, should you wish to do so. And if you contact Phoenix Pro directly on social media, they will give you all the details of how to get there in the cheapest fashion. So if you do think, oh, I do fancy some wrestling, but I'm on the mainland, but if you happen to be particularly in the Hampshire region, it's actually not that bad. You can get over there via Southampton or Portsmouth for a number of other methods, including swimming, you lazy fuckers. So good stuff indeed, ladies and gentlemen. Phoenix Pro Wrestling presents its first ever 18 plus show this Saturday, Maximum Break at Ride Esplanade on the Isle of Wight. Right, moving on to the final little bits of news. Well, there isn't really much, if I'm being honest, other than the fact that Vince McMahon has filed a statement of undisputed facts in his lawsuit against Janelle Grant. In the latest update to the Vince McMahon sexual misconduct civil lawsuit, the former CEO's attorneys have filed their statement of undisputed material facts in support of the motion to move Janelle Grant's pending civil case to private arbitration. Basically, in layman's terms, for anyone who doesn't understand, they're trying to essentially move this out of the court of public appeal so it can't be seen in the public eye and making it private, which would suggest potentially a certain level of guilt or maybe just trying to avoid it. And also, ironically enough, WWE have come out recently in support of this being moved to arbitration, private arbitration, which is very interesting. That's probably a PR move more than anything else, if I would be willing to bet. Roger Sears, there's not really much we can really discuss about it. Would you ever dream of taking a shit on a woman's head?
No. Dear God,
what about
no.
you? What about yourself, Sean McKenzie? You got a little bit more inclined by that? You and your missus got
absolutely not. Absolutely not.
What happened to this world, man? We used to be so free-willed. Consenting adults, obviously. I just feel like there's too much kink shaming in this world at this point. But you know what? If you're high in fibre, you've had your special K for the morning, and you and your missus are down for it, then who am I to judge what you want to do? But Vince McMahon obviously is a piece of shit, ladies and gentlemen. Before I get my inbox getting blown up with people saying I support Vince McMahon and his behaviour, because that's what'll happen because people don't get the joke. And also, there's nothing funny about his behavior, but there is something very funny about trying to find humor in the darkest of times. So that's kind of the point. But yeah, we'll keep you abreast of the situation, which frankly is not great. So Ricky Starks was recently backstage at AEW to receive his yearly physical, but the former FTW champion has not been on TV at all since March 30th. And with Double or Nothing less than 2 weeks away, it doesn't look like he'll have a role on the pay-per-view. Every time I always predict something to go some way, it doesn't go that way. And it kind of just leaves me being like, well, we'll just figure that out then and see, I guess, says Starks, who was recently speaking to What Culture. I really have no clue when I'll be back. It's just a very interesting time, I feel like. I wish that I was on Dynamite, or I wish I was on AEW's recent Dynasty pay-per-view. At a certain point, it's not in my control. I think that's the biggest lesson I have. Starks admitted things are just not in my control, but the things that are, I try the hardest. I'm not hurt. Even that night on Collision, I specifically stated, hey, I'm not hurt. I was just being cautious about it because at the moment, I didn't know what was happening, especially with this side of my body, so I wasn't hurt. Starks recently reiterated on social media that he's not injured in response to reports that there was more to his yearly physical than meets the eye. However, his former tag team partner, Big Bill, has returned to AEW TV as a disciple of Chris Jericho, while Starks remains absent. Is this just a case of they just don't have anything for him at the moment, or do you think it's something more nefarious at play, or it is, in fact, a real indication of the issues with AEW that they can't find room for Ricky Starks, who, for my money, is one of the best fucking people they have on their entire roster?
I mean,
I think
I was always under the impression that AEW, whilst it's being billed as this big TV brand, that even though you're contract to them, you can still wrestle elsewhere. You can do a Europe tour, Japan tour if you want to. You could go on Impact. You can go on, even though they own Ring of Honor, you could go on Ring of Honor, or you could go on the indie shows in a sports hall and wrestle a bit in about 500 people. I mean, a bit about the same amount of crowd, 500 people, but like I was always under that impression of it being you could go anywhere. So in the case of AEW, I think it's very much where they just don't have anything for him and they're just holding him there. And maybe Ricky Starks wants something bigger. Maybe we could see.
Did you say Ricky Starks wants something bigger? Because if
I
he
did.
wants something bigger, I have
What
something
have I done?
that he
What
most
have I done?
definitely could give. He could have. He could spend a lot of time. Yeah. It's would you like to hear a joke about Roger Sears' penis? Because you can't, because it's too long. There you go. Please continue.
Yeah, I feel like maybe Ricky Stark is it Ricky Stark or Ricky Starks? I don't really know which one he
Ricky
is.
Starks.
Either way, like maybe it's looking like his contract could be coming up. They've got nothing for him, so they're waiting for it to run out, and then maybe he'll go off to WWE or he'll just stick to the small independent shows.
Yeah, in what is probably one of the more controversial moments in the history of WrestlePlug Pro, it is worth pointing out that Roger Sears' penis is so big that Israel and Palestine are currently in conflict over it. Just for clarification, there is nothing funny about a conflict between Palestine and Israel, but there is something extraordinarily funny about Roger Sears' cock mimicking the Gaza Strip.
You know, it was a wrong time to take a sip of my water then.
Wow. Yeah. Also, it's worth pointing out that every time Roger Sears has a wank, it actually looks like a 30-man Royal Rumble. It's a bit of a thinker, that one. Bit of a thinker. That, ladies and gentlemen, wraps up the wrestling news. Yeah. Is there anything you two would like to talk about before we wrap things up?
No.
Roger Sears, would you like to embellish on the incredible story that is your penis?
No.
No, your penis is doing enough embellishing for the rest of us. It's honestly, for anybody who gets the opportunity to share a locker room with Roger Sears, don't look straight at it. It's terrifying.
You can't look straight at it. It's the size of the entire building.
Yeah, some say that Roger Sears actually has to go outside to get changed, and even then he stops traffic. So it's what it is. There are just some things that are too big for this world. Yes, indeed. Incidentally, as well, the latest Fallout game that will be coming out, the entire map is based on the circumference of Roger Sears' cock, ladies and gentlemen. So yeah, should be an interesting weekend. Yeah. I don't know. I don't even know how he's going to record. He must have extra tape. I have no idea. But ladies and gentlemen, of course, if you'd like to see more of the WrestlePlug, you can check us out on YouTube. You can check us out on social media at WrestlePlug. We never tweet. I can't be fucking asked if I'm being honest. It's a cesspool of bullshit. Our Facebook page is a little quiet, but if anybody wants any particular content on there, please let us know. This podcast, of course, will be dropping most likely tomorrow evening or Friday evening. And also, if you check out WrestlePlug on the YouTube, you can also see the pre-show involving myself and Luna Tricks as we preview Maximum Break from Phoenix Professional Wrestling, which goes down this Saturday, only their second ever show. So be sure to check that out. Or, I don't know, leave comments underneath like a salty little bitch. I mean, it's one or the other. Like, who am I to judge? We're not bitter here at the WrestlePlug. We just like pointing out the facts, and that upsets people, doesn't it?
Yeah, cry me a river.
Yeah, real glass. Real glass. There's an awful lot of jungle boys running around on that island, isn't there? Ah, dear. Ah, well, it is what it is. Write another angry status about it and prove me right. Go ahead. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's the WrestlePlug for you, the State of Wrestling Address. Thank you very much to Roger Sears and, of course, the guest appearance of his massive dong. Thank you very much to Sean McKenzie, who obviously doesn't matter if he had a big penis or not. He's not going to match up to Roger Sears in any sense, but he is a rather admirable addition to the podcast. And also, despite having ADHD, didn't interrupt nearly as much as Tanvir. Isn't it funny how much quicker this thing flowed when Tanvir wasn't here? Who knows that?
Yeah.
Weird.
It's also funny how it's also that's the first time I've interrupted you, and it's nearly the end of the podcast. Would you look at that? It's funny that Tanvir likes to say that I'm diagnosed with it, but he interrupts more. So who's the judge, really?
We're all on the spectrum in some fashion, but from Sean McKenzie, Roger Sears, and myself, Aeron Nix, thank you very much for watching the State of Wrestling Address, and we will catch you next week for more on the wrestling news. Seriously, that thing is massive. You're going to have someone's eye out on it. Unbelievable. It's so big, it's got his own dick.
Jesus
It's ridiculous.
Da, 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 da.
Boing.